Religious dignitaries from the world over gathered at Vienna's Hofburg Palace for the dedication ceremony of the King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue. The three founding nations, Saudi Arabia, Spain and Austria, were represented by their foreign ministers. Among the 600 guests was UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon. The Saudi government provided some 15 million euros in funding for the Dialogue Center for the first 3 years.
We are most grateful to His Majesty King Abdullah for his far-sighted decision to launch this important and timely initiative. Austria is greatly honored that this center is established in Vienna.
Outside the palace, Greens and liberal Muslim protesters point out that even as Saudi Arabia promotes religious dialogue in Vienna, it commits human rights abuses at home.
It's a shame and a disgrace for Austria and Spain to have provided the Saudis a center like this as a platform for their views in Europe and all the world.
The center is headquartered in this palace in Vienna. Representatives of all the world religions are invited to come here and engage in constructive dialogue. Critics are predicting endless rounds of unproductive chatter and worry that Saudi Arabia could indeed use the center to gain a foothold in Europe for its Wahhabi state religion, an ultra-strict form of Islam.
There are critics even from all over the world, and there are major supporters from all over the world. But without the critics, we don't need dialogue.
Pristina, capital of Kosovo. The economy here is on the skids, and many young people are out of work. 90% of the Kosovars are Sunni Muslim, who practice a moderate form of Islam that grew out of Albanian folk tradition and centuries of Ottoman Turk domination. But things are changing. Reporter Vizar Dorici goes to the Center for Investigative Journalism to follow up on police tips that Islamic extremism is spreading in Kosovo.
The central fact is that there are organized groups in Kosovo promoting extremism. State agencies believe they may get financing from dubious sources. There are organizations active here in Kosovo that are on lists of suspicious groups in other countries and whose offices have been closed by the police. Some of them are on the USA's list of terrorist groups.
Saudi Arabia is also funding new mosques. But moderate Muslims have halted construction of a mosque in Bajčina, a village in northwestern Kosovo, for fear that radical Islamists could use it as a headquarters. In the nearby district capital, Podujeva, many local people come to hear the sermons of the moderate-leaning Imam Idris Bilali. He was also chairman of the town's Islamic community until he was dismissed by Kosovo's Grand Mufti. Imam Bilali had opposed the use of Saudi funding for the construction of the Bajčina mosque.
There are tendencies and efforts underway to expand this network of fundamentalist believers in the extremist Wahhabi ideology. The Islamic community must be far more vigilant than it is now.
Imam Bilali is highly respected by his own congregation for, among other things, his critical stance. And he's not alone. Other imams in Kosovo have publicly warned against Wahhabi extremism and suffered consequences for their courage.
They waited for the right moment to attack me and beat me up. They thought I'd keep silent. But to their surprise, I went to the public and warned against the radical Wahhabis. These extremists are trying to take over the mosques. And once that's achieved, they plan to go even further and maybe even take over the government.
Kosovo's government has assigned its police and intelligence service to track the activities of radical Muslims. In Pristina, Kosovo's Grand Mufti responds to the fears and criticisms of his imams.
If there are people from abroad here committing injustice and indoctrinating in the name of Islam, then we must fight them with all the means in our power and prevent them from sowing the seeds of evil in Kosovo, where our Almighty God created us and where we live.
Construction of a large mosque on this lot in the center of Pristina is planned to begin in spring 2013. The Grand Mufti has called for donations. It's not yet clear if some of that funding will come from Saudi Arabia.